Hello and welcome to the PocketGamer.biz Podcast. We are doing it's the 6th episode or something. It is far too hot to even think about numbers or how many things we're doing or how often we're doing these things. We have had a little bit of hiatus, possibly down to Pocket Gamer Connect's digital number 2, which was wildly successful and lots of fun to be part of, and also because of tech issues and other things. But we are back. We will be keeping up with this, and we are enjoying it, aren't we, everybody? We love doing the podcast. Everybody's so happy that we're closing the windows, shutting our doors, locking ourselves in our boiling hot homes, and getting down to talking about the business of mobile games. How is everybody coping with the heat? Matthew, I haven't spoken to you about weather yet, so...
Well, yes, it's ridiculously hot. We can agree that. It is a scorcher. Me and you, Rick, were both in the north. We're not used to this weather.
No.
It is melting me as I speak, yes.
So, yeah, and Kaylee as well, is just, we were chatting before we started and saying, now that we've closed all our windows and doors and everything, it is just unreasonable to be doing anything other than, sunbathing, except there's no sun anymore, just heat. So this might be a slightly shorter podcast to save us all from, dying.
It does feel like the end of days a little bit. Like there's one thing after another. Do you know what I mean? I'm expecting a plague of locusts next to start arriving or something.
Fairly certain there has already been a plague of locusts somewhere in Asia. So that's already covered. I think the next thing is...
there we go then.
Yeah, the next thing is the
Start
rivers
building
running
an
red. Yes, so we do have a podcast here. We have a whole schedule of things that we're going to talk about, including but not limited to Facebook gaming app on iOS getting rejected multiple times by Apple, Supercell's launch in Braille Stars and how it's going there, Apex Legends rumors, or not rumors, but sort of indications that it's going to be soft launched towards the end of the year, Nintendo possibly moving away from mobile games production, and more. But first... we mentioned Apple at the start of the show just then, and Apple have had their big WWDC, the Worldwide Developers Conference for 2020, hosted at Apple Park with nobody else there, so it was slightly creepy if anybody watched it, but also kind of fascinating. It was all pre-recorded, and there was slick transitions and moving about and still showing off everything. It was very interesting, but what is of interest to possibly you, the watcher, and the readers of our website is what they actually announced for iOS 14. So, it's not quite games, but it still is going to impact things that happen on your phone. So very interesting. We've got additions such as the app library, which will automatically sort all the apps on your phone into different categories and then stick them off to one side on the furthest away window on your screen. So you're not just cluttered with apps, kind of like what Android already has. When you just swipe up and you have a whole thing there. They've also reimagined widgets, so now instead of being on a separate sort of notification screen or wherever they used to be, they will now be on the home screen. You can have different sizes of them and they will allow different bits of interaction, kind of like how Android does widgets. There's also the Smart Stack, which will sort your widgets and store them in the top of the thing and cycle through them. Picture-in-picture mode is coming to iOS, so you can watch videos whilst doing other things on your phone. Siri's getting an update. Translate app is getting an update. The Message app is getting an update. Apple Maps, they wouldn't stop talking about Apple Maps and its new cycling features that are going to be added to 5 cities to begin with and then slowly rolling out to more. And the thing that really fascinated me is that they will now let you create digital car keys for one specific car to start with.
Is it a Tesla by any chance?
It's not. I can't actually remember what car it was. I saw it and it was big and it looked American. So it could have been a Tesla, but it could have been literally anything. But basically, yeah, you will have a digital car key that you can load up on your app and it opens the car and then you get in, then you press a button and the engine comes on. Or you put it in your charging dock and the engine comes on. And then you can also share your digital car key with other people so that they can take your car, which presumably they have to be insured to use as well. So it just seems kind of silly.
I imagine so.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing as well is app clips, which are sort of incredibly small apps that will be able to, instead of having to go and download a full app, you'll be able to pop this up through mobile data. They have to be less than 10 megabytes in size, and they can be used for reading NFC or QR codes, and they can be used for payments and stuff like that, kind of like how Android does instant apps. I've mentioned Android a few times, sheerly because it seems like a lot of what they're doing here is kind of catching up on that. Kaylee, would you agree with that? Is this exciting new features, or is this Apple finally looking at Android and going, oh yeah, we should do that?
Yeah, no, this is definitely Apple looking at Android and thinking, yeah, finally we should add this to iPhones.
Yeah.
I've been an iPhone user for about 5 years, and I've never used widgets just because they're stuck on that one screen. What's the point? I am looking forward to the picture-in-picture feature, because I mess around with loads of apps on my phone and I like to watch things as well, so that'll work pretty nicely. But to me, it is just catching up with Android. Like, I'm sorting things out into categories and all that malarkey. I did that 5 years ago with my Android. Like,
it definitely seems like they are going more streamlined with everything they've introduced here.
Yeah.
They're trying to, make it all a bit more easier to get hold of and organized, I think. I mean, I've got iOS too, which I am, funny enough, thinking of switching over to Android when my contract's up this end of this year. And everything on, all the apps and widgets, everything, it's just a mess on my phone. The apps everywhere. So it probably is a good idea to do some stuff like this. I like the little things I've also planned to introduce. So Siri's no longer going to take over the whole screen now.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is huge, because one, the amount of times I accidentally call out Siri and then just ruins whatever I'm listening to or something. Like, so that's a nice little thing. The impressive thing, which I know it's not really games itself, but I really like the real-time conversations for Google Translate. Which if that works perfectly, that'd be extraordinary. That's huge, but I'm a bit apprehensive of how it's going to work, in day-to-day life, as opposed to we say we do this, we say we can do this, and let's actually see what it looks like.
Yeah, the translate thing did look pretty cool, because it's sort of like you speak into it, then it translates and speaks out, I think. I don't remember. It was a few days ago, and I watched quite a lot of this WWDC. So yeah, that looks really cool. I really like the you can now have like inline replies for your group chats and messages. So if you're in a group chat and you're just like constantly like getting updated, you can scroll back up and just start having mini conversations within the conversation, which I think is a really neat addition. That's it would save me a lot of bother in some of the group chats I'm in. And slightly weird, but I guess implementing like reflecting the world at large as well, is that they are adding their memojis, which I've always thought was slightly creepy initially, but now you can add face masks to them, like, because coronavirus is happening, which I guess that makes a lot of sense, but also, oh dear God, I don't want to think about it all times. Like, this is my memoji. You can't see if it's smiling or not. It's wearing a face mask. So some cool things coming to iOS 14. There was also a bunch of other stuff announced for the iPad. So Apple Pencil is getting an update. There was some new stuff for tvOS, for watchOS. You can find all the information about that on PocketGamer.biz. Honestly, there was so much of it that I've forgotten most of it.
New Macs running on Apple-made chips. That was pretty huge.
Yes, of course, they're doing their own chips now and processors and stuff. As I say, all that information available on PocketGamer.biz. I watched the whole thing and wrote it up as it happened. And
it was about 4 hours, wasn't it, or something?
It was an hour and 50.
Oh, I was miles off. I don't know why I thought it was like 4 hours.
I mean, the actual conference has been running all week, and they're doing podcasts and videos and stuff about their new stuff, and developers can get involved with that and that kind of thing. I imagine if you are an iOS developer, you've already seen all that, so I hope you had a nice time. We're going to stick with Apple for the next story, because on top of having a big announcement thing, obviously this is a while ago now, but we haven't done a podcast for about 3 weeks, so we're just going to dot around the past 3 weeks of big stories. Apple is now getting sued for having games with loot boxes on the App Store, which is just wild to me. So this was reported by Apple Insider. There is I think a class action lawsuit going against Apple, and one of the plaintiffs is claiming that their child probably... I don't know specifically. I'm looking at the story and I can't see any mention of it, but it's always like there's always a child who ended up buying a bunch of in-app purchases, and they buy loot boxes, and the parent goes, "Oh my God, this my beautiful son who never gets anything wrong has bought all these things, and now I'm sad, so I'm going to try and sue Apple." and they're sort of claiming that, they're saying that loot boxes can lead to gambling addictions, and they are saying that, I think their main complaint seems to be that Apple and the App Store doesn't make it clear that games include loot boxes. Matt, what's your kind of take on all this? Like, do you think this case has any legs at all, or is this just another time waster?
Not this particular case. Loot boxes, it's a very hot topic. There are issues with loot boxes. I'm not going to be here and say there's absolutely no issues with them whatsoever. I don't think the mechanic is solid altogether. Like, I don't think it is, it's all that thing about communication and clarity. It's the, was it Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft came together last year, I think it was now, to say, like, we're going to make anybody that uses loot boxes display the odds and everything like that. And that sort of thing, which I think is totally fair, needs to be doing. You need to let people know that sort of thing. With this sort of thing, it is a parental thing. I always think like that. It is something like, come on, man, don't let your kids go wild with something, and it's difficult because there is a lot to learn and everything like that. And I feel like it's up to the parent as well to take an interest in what they're playing and learn about these mechanics, these sort of things. I understand people are busy, that sort of thing, but it's just the world we live in today. And so it's a difficult topic, but for this one, I do think loot boxes need addressing more. They do need investigating more. We do need more details about them. But in this particular case, it's like, get your kid off the iPad. This is just like end of the day.
Yeah, I feel like the sort of the underlying thing is obviously that people are annoyed about loot boxes, and I get that. I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like, there are problems, and more clarity is kind of needed. But one of the big things they're kind of like gunning for really here is just to have Apple say on the App Store, this game contains loot boxes, which I don't think is actually that difficult to do, really. No. So I can imagine that even if nothing else happens, Apple kind of looks at it and goes, yeah, we could probably fix that. Because they already have, if your game is only free to play and has IAPs, there is like a specific line under the game, under like the name and then the subtitle, and then it says contains in-app purchases. Mm-hmm. So that's already there. You could just update that to say contains loot boxes.
Yeah, it's just transparency. It's like any game now, that says, it contains violence, contains drugs, contains sex. Just be communication and clarity. It's all it's about.
Yeah. Kaylee, any more thoughts on that, or are we all just in agreement that let's just be more open about it?
No, I completely agree, be more open about it, but at the same time, don't let your kid know your password.
Yes.
Like, it's as simple as that. There's parental locks and things. And if they've got their own phone, again, don't let them have your credit card on the phone. There are ways for parents to actually prevent this. I do think there's an issue with loot boxes. I'm not going to deny that, but take some responsibility for your kids. Like, some of it's on the parents.
I did enjoy how in the article it says, however, the child continues to have access to the device today.
Yes.
Really?
That is wild. I mean, just parents, we're all young people, so we can't really talk about this too much. But
none of us have kids, so we can't speak to that.
But it always feels like, as you say, Matt, just, parents there should be some responsibility on the parents to be educating their children and to take an interest in what they're doing as well. But I wonder also, where should the parents go to learn? I know there's some organizations, I know that Yuki are partnering with people like, I can't remember any names, but Yuki are partnering with people to provide more information to parents about what's going on in games and in-app purchases and stuff like that. Maybe it would help if Apple started doing sort of small tutorials on the App Store, just saying, here's what an in-app purchase is, here's what loot boxes are, here's how you can actually get access to the parental controls, and sticking those front and center to help out.
Yeah. Or they could look at the game. My cousin's got kids and they use iPads, and she checks what they play.
Yeah.
So there are ways around it. And growing up, my mum knew everything about games, but she knew it because of me. So she made herself learn it, and she understood things. So I think, there are ways for parents to learn these things without the help of Apple, and it is as simple as looking at the game. Like I said, my cousin does it, and those girls have never spent any money.
Yeah, and as you said though, they are free to play games, but just don't have your credit card. Then they can't spend any money. Simple as that. There's if your account's not hooked up, there's no way they can spend money, and they can still get lots of joy from playing it without.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think to be fair in this case, I think one of the things they were saying is like their kid had spent some money on their gift cards, and I don't know if that's like covered under the same things. Maybe some tighter security on spending overall, including like money you've got on gift cards, I guess would help. But again, we don't have kids, so who are we to judge?
I hope not.
No, we don't have kids that we know about, but who knows?
I'd like to think I'd know.
Yeah.
That's
a story for another day.
Yes, we won't go too deep into that. Apple again, so we're going to stick with Apple, just clear all these out in one go. It's kind of an interesting story in the sense that, it's two big giants sort of facing off in a way. Facebook have done their gaming app, which is like, it's sort of Facebook but condensed down, so you're looking at the Facebook streamers, you're socially interacting with other people who play games, and then actually within the app you can access a bunch of HTML5 hyper casual or casual games to easily play. It launched on Android a few weeks ago, and it's a pretty decent app. I had a quick go on it. It seems pretty nice. It's having a rough time getting on iOS though. Apple has rejected it at least 5 times according to a report by the New York Times. And seems to be rejecting it on the grounds of Section 4.7 of its app rules, which state that you can have HTML5 games in your app so long as the code distribution isn't the main purpose of the app and code is not offered in a store or store-like interface. So the Facebook gaming app does have it sort of presented as a store. You kind of go in, you pick your game, you start playing it that way. Facebook does already have games available through apps. It has on Messenger and stuff, but that's because it's a messaging app that happens to have games. And I believe you could probably get access to them through the Facebook app itself. But again, that's just a side thing, whereas this is very much focused on the gaming side of it. Matt, I guess one of the problems is this is Apple once again exerting its authority over people trying to get games onto iOS that don't go directly through the App Store and don't count as downloads through the App Store. Mm-hmm. Is it time for Apple to, just ease back on this a little bit and maybe reconsider their approach?
I mean, ideally, yes, but I don't know if Apple are ever going to do that.
No.
They've not done it in the past, as, it mentions the article Game Club, which launched last year, I think, as well. That's another subscription-based service. It has access to a load of mobile games. It was 127 times before it gained approval.
Yeah.
They had to put it through. So, Facebook, 123 more times, and then you're in.
I think the interesting thing, though, for me is that Facebook is so keen on getting their app on there that they are considering reportedly just removing all games from the app. At which point, I think the app is just so neutered that there's absolutely no point in having it there. Would you use a gaming app that only lets you watch streams that isn't Twitch and interact with other gamers? How does anyone feel about that? I don't know, Matthew, you were talking about it before. Is this something that you would actually use if you couldn't play games on it?
Not personally myself. I think there's potential. There is an audience for it. Let's be honest. The Facebook name is huge, and so many people still use Facebook to this day. So in this circumstance, I can see people go into it. Again, it's a long-term thing, though. I don't know if it's enough to keep people around. That's the thing.
Yeah. Although, that said, now I remember it, and it's not on our schedule, but we can touch briefly on it. Mixer is obviously shutting down, and Microsoft is now working with Facebook Gaming. So we could end up seeing... Yeah, we could end up seeing some really big name streamers, and then you can get access to them directly through the Facebook Gaming app. So maybe there's something there. I don't know. Kaylee, do you watch streamers? I always assume that you do. I don't know why I assume that you do.
Yeah, nailed it. I do.
I imagine you're a Twitch person, but is Facebook Gaming going to be of interest to you now that Mixer's gone and bigger names?
I think that's the problem. Nobody was a Mixer person with it.
Yeah, true.
No, you're spot on. I am a Twitch person, but I did watch a little bit of Mixer because of Ninja. Mm-hmm. I watched a little bit of him. I watched him on Twitch, and then I didn't like Mixer just for whatever reason, and I stopped watching. I didn't watch so much on Mixer. But big Shroud is another big streamer that was on Mixer. I liked him, so if him and Ninja were to move to Facebook Gaming, I would give it a chance and I would watch. if they do manage to nab these big streamers, but the problem is they both had huge audiences on Twitch before jumping to Mixer, so they do actually have a home to go back to if they want. That's the problem Facebook Gaming's going to have.
Yeah, and they've both, I believe reports are that they've both been sort of like bought out of their contracts as well, so they don't have to go to Facebook Gaming.
The free agents.
Yeah.
Just completely free at this point. And I imagine, like as you say, they probably will go back to Twitch because they have these huge followings there. They've got a home to go to, rather than keep risking their necks on Facebook Gaming instead. So fascinating to see all that happening. And good luck to Facebook getting your app on there on iOS. That'll be fun. Oh God, I have so many emails to reply to. But we are doing a podcast, so I'm going to focus on that instead. So, moving away from Apple for a bit, we are going to touch on actual games, which is nice. Braille Stars, Supercell's big, I guess, MOBA light is how I've always thought of it. That launched in China. Yeah, good. That launched in China a couple of weeks ago now, and then we got some stats through from Sensor Tower about how the game is performing in its first week. So it's already generated $17.5 million in its first week of launch in China. 4.8 million downloads, so that's pretty high numbers, I would feel, from those kind of numbers. That revenue from those numbers of downloads seems like a lot when you think about it, which completely negates my next question now that I think about it. Kaylee, is that a lot?
Yeah. Yeah. Braille Stars had a very successful launch in China. Simple answer.
Well, moving on. No, I mean, like, I've never understood the appeal of Braille Stars. I had a quick go in it when it first launched, and then just completely slipped away because I always felt it was a bit slow. It wasn't like a full-on proper MOBA. I just didn't really see the appeal, but clearly the rest of the world does, and I'm going to be going back and having another look at it soon, because it is interesting that it maintains such a strong following. It's generated $675.4 million so far since launching, I think it was last year now, across iOS and Android. And this China launch is almost certainly going to keep boosting its... it launched in December 2018. I do apologize. But still only like 18 months old at this point and close to reaching $1 billion. Like, have either of you played Brawl Stars, and do you see the appeal of it, or like...
I've played a couple hours of it, yeah. I sort of see it a little bit. There isn't enough for me to like invest long term. As you know, I fell off it pretty much. I got a couple nights on it, that sort of thing. But I don't know if it's just the cartoony nature of stuff. Like it's very simple to pick up. I think that's a big benefit to it. And again, it's that like Fortnite thing. That art style is sort of similar. It seems to always resonate with people. I do think the most impressive thing from this is that it's basically doubled Clash Royale's launch, near enough. Which is, Clash Royale, what was it, 9.4 million when it launched. I know that was a few years ago and everything like that, I think in China, but it's still very impressive.
Yeah. So my sort of question was, maybe we expected more, but like I get the feeling I'm getting from everybody else is actually no, 17.5 million is a lot of money. And when I did sort of looked at it in my head and rethought about it, it's like, wow, you're probably making probably at least a very high percentage of players are either paying for that, or there's some really, really hardcore gamers in China that have already jumped on this game and are going to be spending a ton of money on it in the upcoming months. So it'd be really interesting to see how it keeps going.
Yeah, what was it? 17.5 from 4.8 million?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those numbers speak for themselves, the amount of people that are investing money in that, it's ridiculous. But, that is the Asian market. They do like to spend more than normal, typically Western, you find. So,
mostly because mobile is the predominant market in
Exactly.
China and the rest of Asia, as we understand it. So yes, keep an eye on Brawl Stars. That's going to absolutely sail through in China. Speaking of other games, that was a smooth transition. Apex Legends.
We'll take it.
Yeah, we'll take it. So there was a investors fireside chat from EA on Monday, June 22nd, shortly after their EA Play event, where they announced a bunch of games that were not mobile, unfortunately. But they did, in this investor chat, have a quick chat about mobile with Andrew Wilson CEO, saying that they currently have Plants vs. Zombies 3 in soft launch, which we know about. We're tracking on our soft launch list. And they've talked about having Apex Legends in soft launch by the end of the year. So Apex Legends was actually announced for mobile in May 2019. So soft launch by the end of this year will be about 18 months after the announcement, just about. And also like 2 years after the game, almost 2 years after the game was actually released initially. What was it, like April 2019 the game was launched?
Yeah,
February.
February.
February. So yeah, so you're looking at like 22 months after the game actually launched on consoles, and then there might be a soft launch, and then maybe 2 years after the game's launched, we might see a full release on mobile. Kaylee, is that too late for making an impact?
See, when it comes to like battle royale titles, Matt's probably a good one for this because I know he plays Apex Legends.
I do.
But I think if someone's a battle royale fan, they've got their favourite, they've got their pick. So when Apex Legends comes to mobile, I do think it is going to pick up an audience from those who do play it on console or PC, if that's their pick. But I do think like 22 months after its console launch, I do think that will affect it to begin with. But I do think it will pick up a fan base from those that already play it on console. I think they will at least give it a try on mobile.
Yeah. I guess the other interesting thing is as well is that they've partnered with somebody. I don't think they've mentioned who, but they partnered with somebody to launch in China as well. If they can do a simultaneous worldwide launch, then I imagine the audience will start coming in from China because they presumably don't have access to Apex Legends right now. And if they do, like, we haven't heard about it. So maybe a mobile launch could help it. But Matt, as an Apex fan,
oh yes,
what do you think? What's your take on taking so long to get to mobile?
I'm going to disagree. Sorry. Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect it whatsoever. You know, Fortnite and PUBG and stuff, they didn't come to mobile, you know, day one. I don't think it's going to affect Apex whatsoever. I think Apex has grown massively over time. It was huge on launch, had ridiculous numbers. Briefly overtook Fortnite, very briefly on Twitch viewers, that sort of thing. And then it sort of slowed down a little bit once it aimed to season 2, I think. But since they've brought it back to season 3, they've been up and up and up, and the numbers have been skyrocketing. I think the game is fantastic. I have invested so many hours in it. It was my game of the year last year. And I got, you know, I don't know if you've seen this, but like PlayStation sends out stats every year for what you've played.
Yeah.
Like the most and everything. And it was just like, yeah, Apex Legends, like 200 hours. Like, oh, yep, I need to stop playing this a little bit. So I think it's a compared to the other battle royals, in my opinion, it's got a much deeper system, and arguably that could put people off. I know you and me, Rick, we played a game very early on.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Wow, a long time ago now. Jeez.
Yeah. But I do think it will. It's how they transition it across. It's how they implement the mechanics, because there is a lot, and I don't know how well it's going to work on mobile. That's my worry. I do trust Respawn though. It depends. That's another thing, though. How much is Respawn involved with this? As you say, they are partnering with a mobile studio. By the sounds of it, so I think it's a wait and see thing. If the game transitions over, and it's pretty much a like for like scenario to what it's on, you know, console controls wise and that sort of thing, and it runs well, everything like that, I can see it being a massive hit. If it doesn't, it might peter out.
Yeah, I guess that's what you're saying there is very true, that it is mechanically like quite dense. And I guess the question is, like, if they're spending this long getting to soft launch, is that because they're still having trouble like working out how to make it actually work on mobile?
Potentially,
which is entirely fair, because it's an incredibly complex game. Like, they've spent a lot. They're clearly taking their time on this one because it could actually be pretty big for the company. And Andrew Wilson is very happy with how their mobile arm is going. A direct quote from him he said that unlike many people in the mobile industry, we've built a very strong and profitable business, which is a really great way to ingratiate yourself with the rest of the mobile developers. Thank you, Andrew Wilson. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that out there because I absolutely loved that quote. It just made me smile. Speaking of smiling, we're going to talk about Pokemon. And I'm going to go throw to Matthew on this one because I know that you're super excited to talk about Pokemon. And I'm just going to I'm just going to sit back and let you roll on this one. Tell me all about the Pokemon announcements from 2 weeks ago and last week and this week.
Oh, all right. So where did we start? So we had Pokemon Presents with the Pokemon president. I can't pronounce his name. Isahara? I can't do it.
I think
it's the Pokemon president. Yeah, that's it. So we had Pokemon Smile, which was the first one for mobile, which is it's a game where you brush your teeth and you catch Pokemon. I briefly dipped into this. I say I dipped into it. I loaded it up, started brushing my teeth, and I was doing the bizarre holding your camera, like trying to, looking in the inside of your mouth, which is never, your best moment. And then my phone died on the spot, and I was like, that's typical. And then my girlfriend walked in and looked at me and like, what are you doing? And I was like, honestly, it's fine. But no, so Pokemon Smile, it's a game where you brush your teeth, and you're supposed to fight cavities. I believe there are, it'll give you I think it's like viruses or something. Like there's enemies you've got to defeat in your mouth, and then you'll get an opportunity to catch a Pokemon. You'll also get opportunities to wear like VR, AR hats of certain Pokemon, which is nice. It's a thing for young kids to brush their teeth, which is always a good incentive. It's part of their quality of life products they've been doing. Pokemon Go was one. This is another, and Pokemon Sleep is another one in the future, which they did not touch upon. So we have no idea what's happening with that. The other thing, we've got Pokemon Cafe Mix, which is like a puzzler, very similar to like Disney Tsum Tsum, which you've already beat. Is that right, Rick?
Yes. Unfortunately, I did spend the last 2 days completing all 100 levels in Pokemon Cafe Mix without spending any money because I am a pro gamer. I'm a little bit ashamed of myself, honestly. But it's wild to me as well that they launched a game with only 100 levels in, and sort of they kind of expected people would get to that end, but the like long-term retention after that is we now have master cafe mode or something like that, where basically it's just the same levels but harder, and you don't get any extra upgrades, you don't get to meet any more Pokemon, you can just level up the ones that you do have. And you'll earn Master Cafe points, which don't seem to do anything at the moment. So I'm really not sure what the point in playing is anymore. And also, I don't know how I'm going to find out about, we finally updated the game with more levels. So I don't know if I'll ever keep playing it. As I said,
I thought it was enjoyable though for what I did spend with it. I don't know if you'll go back to it. Yeah,
obviously, I finished all 100 levels. I didn't hate it.
So from there, you had Mega Evolutions as well, which was introduced for Pokemon Go. Very big deal, because obviously, Pokemon Go never dies, no matter what the internet tells you. Mega Evolutions, for people that don't know, they're an additional evolution for Pokemon. So, you've got Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard. It can turn into Mega Charizard. And there's specific Pokemon that get given this. It'd be very cool to see that introduced. Pokemon Snap, a sequel was announced, which I cannot believe. This game came out in 1999, I think. I've still got it on my N64. I love the game. I probably replay it every couple of years because it's just a nice little short 3 to 4 hour game you can blast through. Very excited about this. Any Pokemon Snap fans?
I played it in a field in Bristol once, and it was enjoyable.
How did you play it in a field? I'm very interested in that.
Yeah.
That's a talk for another time. Tell me more about Pokemon.
Kaylee, any Pokemon Snap?
Nope, never played it.
Oh, you're in for a treat. It's just lovely. It's just, especially in times like these, we need more Pokemon Snap. It's just the most soothing thing. You just ride around in a little cart and you just take pictures of Pokemon, and then you go back to Professor Oak and go, look at my picture, and he scores it. And, life's a better place.
Oh, brilliant. I'll be all over that.
Yes. So I'm hugely excited for that. Then I had more details of Pokemon Sword and Shield, the DLC, the Isle of Armor, which is now launched and many people are playing. I will hopefully be playing that this weekend. And then they announced another Pokemon Presents for the following week, which was just this Wednesday gone.
Yep.
And obviously there's lots of speculation. Is it going to be, Let's Go Johto, Gen 4 remakes, everything like that? And yes, it was a it was Tencent's game, which was announced last year. That they've partnered to make multiple Pokemon games. This is the first one, which is called Pokemon Unite, and it is a strategic-based battle game for mobile and Switch. And people are not happy.
You can just say MOBA. It's fine. It's a MOBA.
It is a MOBA. I liked their phrasing, but yeah, it makes it sound fancy. But people are not happy about this.
No, I haven't seen any sort of reactions to it because I wasn't paying attention because I was too busy looking at it and going, "Oh, it's Honor of Kings, but with Pokemon."
It's the most disliked video ever on Pokemon's YouTube channel. Yeah,
classic. This is the problem with people getting too hyped about like new announcements and stuff. Is as soon as anyone people sort of go, "Oh, we're announcing a big new project," and everyone goes, "Oh my god, it's going to be this game that's going to fulfill all my wildest dreams, a huge remake of a game that I loved as a child, and it's going to be the best nostalgia trip." And then you remember, actually, Tencent have been saying for a while, we've got a partnership with Pokemon Company, and we're working on something. And then it's Tencent's biggest game ever, Honor of Kings, sort of. I don't want to call it a reskin, but it takes a lot of the same design ideas, and the UI looks quite similar. I think they changed the actual objective of the game, but the play of it looks very similar to Honor of Kings, and then stuck Pokemon in it, which I feel is probably going to be huge for the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Honor of Kings has really struggled outside of China. It's enormous in China. It's one of
Arena of Valor, isn't it? It's called outside.
Yeah. And I'm fairly certain they've just kind of left it to die in the West because it just didn't do anything. Nobody was interested. It's a really good game. I played a lot of Arena of Valor, when it first launched, but everyone's still, League of Legends is still huge. And if you want to play MOBAs, the Western players go to PC and they will play MOBAs there. I think this is a chance for mobile MOBAs to finally have their shot because it'll have a huge IP attached to it. It's it looks simpler, so it might be a bit more child friendly, but there's also the opportunity for huge esports involvement with it and stuff because you team building and that kind of thing, 5v5 battles. I'm really excited for it. Matthew, you said that there's some negative opinions on the internet. What's your take on it? What's your feelings?
That's unlike the internet.
People on the internet being upset. Who thought?
Never.
Sorry, what was that? What are my thoughts?
What do you actually? What you're looking at it? What do you think as a major Pokemon fan?
I think it looks good actually. It's probably I personally would have preferred a Let's Go Johto or something like that. I really enjoyed Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee again, even though that was a remade Gen 1. But actually, I actually think it looks pretty good, and I'm willing to give it a proper go and see what it's like. I think the problem with the internet, and obviously, there's many problems with the internet. We'll be here all day if we go into that. But it's just the marketing. They announced a separate conference, and again, it's expectations with the web and everything. People being entitled in many ways to think, they deserve this sort of game and everything like that. It was maybe a bit of a misread from the Pokemon Company as well, doing a separate conference. Maybe they should have put in with the first, but I don't know. Maybe terms of the deal with Tencent was we need our own announcement, that sort of thing. But I'm excited to see the game. I'm excited to try it out and give it a good go. I don't know if that's the same for you, Kaylee, of someone who's not a Pokemon fan. Not a massive one.
I am a Pokemon fan. It's just, my life's been consumed by something else since last Friday, so I've not really watched anything or looked at anything.
Last of Us, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
3 playthroughs.
Do you think you'd give it a go, though, Kaylee?
Oh, I'd give it a go, yeah. Definitely. Anything that's got Pokemon attached to it, I will get around to giving a go eventually. Just when I'm not so distracted in an apocalyptic world.
Well, Pokemon Snap came out in 1999, so come on, times are ticking. I mean, come on.
I didn't have an N64.
Oh. I know, to be fair, they've never ported it anywhere, so, yeah.
They should have done that first before saying new Pokemon Snap. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a secret original Pokemon Snap remake or just quick dirty port in the works as well to get it on Switch so people get a bit of excitement.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Okay, one more thing that we're going to talk about before we wrap up. And this is also interesting, but I guess sort of kind of expected in its own way. Nintendo, sticking with them, are reportedly going to slow down on their mobile business to focus on Switch. So this is a report from Bloomberg, who sort of pointed out that in May, Nintendo President Shitaro Furukawa said that they're not necessarily looking to continue releasing many new applications for the mobile market, and that they're going to use it to more spread awareness of its IP. Excuse me, spread awareness of its IP rather than use it as a major revenue stream. Currently accounts for about 4% of overall revenues at Nintendo, so not a huge amount, but certainly like a significant figure, I would argue. And yeah, other reports from the DNA president saying that they aren't working on any games for Nintendo at the minute that are going to launch until the end of the current fiscal year. There is rumors that there's no games actually in the current development pipeline. And yeah, they're probably just going to focus on the games that they do have, which, you know, hits all their flagship IP. But yeah, it's just, they're just kind of going, maybe we're just going to focus on Switch instead. Kaylee, I had you down on the schedule to talk about this, but I think Matthew probably has a lot more opinions.
Go on, Kaylee, you go first. You know me. I won't stop if I start, so you go.
Okay, Kaylee, I mean, what are your feelings on this? Were Nintendo really ever that invested in mobile, or are they just running away with their tails between their legs because they screwed it up?
See, I don't think they were ever fully invested in mobile, but I certainly don't think, I think they thought just from their name alone they would do a lot better with mobile.
Yeah.
And obviously I do like Fire Emblem. I think that did well on mobile, didn't it? Or at least
that's huge. 800 plus million. Yeah.
So that's done well, but then they've got games on the other side as well, like Dr. Mario World, that didn't really hit.
Yeah, to say the least.
That's putting it nicely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they're ever fully invested in mobile. But like, if you look at Pocket Camp, look how much better that did after New Horizons came out. So if they can make games coincide with a big Switch title, that I think that makes sense, and that'd be quite a smart move. But we shall see.
Yeah, I think I'm a little disappointed they got, if they're, you know, it's just a report at the minute, so we don't actually know. But DNA have supposedly come out and said, who have done many of their games, Fire Emblem, Super Mario Run, all that. We've got no plans for any games up until the end of the financial year. So we're getting nothing from Nintendo likely until after March 2021. I'm still waiting on my Zelda mobile game, to be honest. I think that's a big one they've missed out on so far. It's not surprising, though, with Nintendo. They are going back on it. As, you know, Kaylee rightfully says, you know, Dr. Mario World didn't do well. They've got stuff like Pocket Camp did okay. It came back a little bit after Horizons, but it never, you know, set the world alight. Fire Emblem Heroes is the only one that's really making waves. Dragalia Lost, in some sense, is doing very well because it's only launched in, I believe, 5 territories at the minute, something like that. Yeah, I think so. It might. I know it was on launch. It might not be now, but at one point it was, and it was doing very well. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what actually comes from Nintendo. But you know, the reality is they don't have the 3DS anymore. You know, they put all their eggs in one basket with the Nintendo Switch. You know, with Wii U, bad example, but you know, they had the Wii and Nintendo DS, and both were killing it. Now they just have the Switch, and the Switch is killing it. Switch is amazing. It's just it's that all eggs in one basket scenario. It's also quite ironic, I find, that while this week, you know, Nintendo are ramping down on mobile releases, the Pokemon Company are going all in.
Well, the Pokemon Company have a history of doing lots of mobile games. Like, it's not. I wasn't hugely surprised when they announced like 3 mobile games in a row, pretty much, with their presents, because they've done Pokemon Masters, they've done Magikarp Jump, the battle games that I can't remember, Pokemon Rumble or whatever that was. So I'm not hugely surprised by the Pokemon Company sticking with mobile, because, you know, that's an area that they have kind of invested time in and invested in developers there and have understood the market. Their games don't do huge numbers. We're not seeing like $1 billion Magikarp figures, unfortunately, because that game was awesome. But you know, it's interesting to see, like, Pokemon Company clearly think we need to keep diversifying as much as possible, and Nintendo thinks we need to focus exclusively on the consoles that we can control, and the ones where we know we're going to have a dedicated audience for. And as you say, Kaylee, I think there's a slight bit of arrogance almost with how they kind of went, oh, we will just rewrite the rules of mobile gaming because we're Nintendo and we can do that. They came in with Super Mario Run for $10, and I think that probably scared a lot of people away after that point. If they'd had a huge launch with Super Mario Run and it had been massively successful and there hadn't been lots of hand-wringing over, oh, we have to spend $10 on a mobile game, I feel like they could have done a lot better with it. Another thing Kaylee was saying that I think is an interesting point is like, if they keep making games to support Switch titles, that also makes a lot of sense because they still have, as you say, Matt, they still haven't done a Zelda game, so there's still a chance for that, and they've got Breath of the Wild 2 in development, so I expect there would be like a Zelda mobile game, and then we'll see Breath of the Wild launch, and maybe the two will have a tie-in thing, and you can earn items for each game and each thing, as they did with Animal Crossing. They still have a bunch of other major IP that they're not using. You know, Kirby. Kirby's not huge, but Kirby's still an important figure for Nintendo. They could certainly bring Kirby to mobile and then launch a new Kirby game on Switch. There's usually a few of those on Nintendo consoles before they die. Maybe we'll see F-Zero come back, even though
that'll solve it.
Literally never happen because Miyamoto thinks everyone hates F-Zero. They've got a lot of IP they still haven't brought to mobile, and there's still a chance that we could see those come along as Switch games start coming out.
I always think Pikmin would be really good on mobile.
Yes, of course, Pikmin.
Yeah,
there's rumors as well, I believe, going around that Pikmin 3 might get ported to Switch, or there's a Pikmin 4 in development or something like that. So.
Pikmin 4's been in development since 2015 or something. Like it got announced years and years ago by Miyamoto, and then there's been nothing since. But
maybe we'll see a Pikmin 4 and there'll be like an idle clicker of a Pikmin game, which would be baller. And now that I thought of that, Nintendo, please make an idle clicker using the Pikmin IP.
Also, if you've ever wondered what actually happened to Dr. Mario World, an article just did go up on PocketGamer.biz where I actually looked into this and brought all the stats together. So give that a look. Wink, wink.
Absolutely. There's some great stats in there and really insightful look at how the game just fell flat on its face straight out the gates, which was kind of surprising. And again, links to the arrogance of Nintendo swanning in and saying, we've got an IP, it's going to do fine. And then it just did nothing. I think that's going to do it for us because it's too hot in my house and I need to start opening some windows. Thank you all for watching and being part of the podcast. It's we are going to try and do these more regularly. It's just time and tech and heat. We are constantly fighting against, but we will get into a better cadence of this. If you are looking for more great video content from the PocketGamer.biz team, we are still doing our roundtables. We just did one this week about diversity, which is fascinating, really interesting, really great guests talking about their experiences as Black developers, as female developers in the mobile games industry and in the industry as a whole. Definitely check that out. It was really great to be a part of. We've got another one coming next week, so Tuesday the 30th, 4 p.m. BST, which will be focused on, it will be an introduction to blockchain with former PGBiz editor John Jordan, who's now heading up PocketGamer.biz. He will be leading a panel of people talking about just explaining what blockchain actually is, which would be great because I have absolutely no idea, and that's why I'm not hosting that one. If that then takes your fancy, we do have Blockchain Gamer Live coming up on the 13th of July to the 17th of July. Tickets for that are available. And if you are just looking for our classic PGC digital content, which we are doing, we've just had the second one recently, and we have our third coming up, which will be, it's technically Pocket Gamer Connect Helsinki, but we're doing it all digital, and it's technically our third digital event, so it's a little bit confusing, but just keep an eye out for PGC Digital Helsinki. I believe tickets for that are going to start becoming available very soon, and we have some great great speakers already lined up. Do check that out. The digital content that we are doing is phenomenal. It's great to be a part of our online only output while the world is still staying indoors as much as possible and mass gatherings are not a viable option. I think that is literally everything. So thank you to Kaylee for joining us.
Bye.
Thank you to Matthew for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you to me for leading this, the ever humble and wonderful leader of PocketGamer.biz. And thank you all for watching. Goodbye.